Do you think Angie Verona can ever be a real lawyer? Do you think she ever could take on a position of political responsibility and leadership? Or do you think the possibility of her doing that has been destroyed forever in the same way that a teenager who chooses to deal crack cocaine on the street, the possibility of him ever working as a lawyer is destroyed forever once he has that criminal record, once he's made that moral compromise for short-term economic gain?
Are you going to practice law? Hopefully down the line, yes. However, right now, I am trying to milk social media as much as possible because there's so many opportunities out there. And right now, I don't want to say it, for lack of better words, it's paying off better than being a first-year practicing attorney or even a second, third, or fourth year. So I'm going to ride this wave as long as I can, and then I'll get into practicing law somewhere down the line. When I do, I'd like to practice family law, real estate law, property, wills and trust, estates, all of that good stuff. After law school, I didn't want to go straight into studying for the bar, so I took this year off to dedicate it into fitness. So I kind of want to reach that fitness goal, which is basically I want to weigh around 120 but be solid muscle. However, I've been very sidetracked, so I'm hoping that I can get back on track. But it doesn't seem that way. I'm still at 107 pounds, so I got a long way to go. But I'm hoping. I have faith in myself.
I do not criticize feminism often on this channel because I think that fears about it are massively overstated on the internet. They are somewhat hysterical in character. Now, that doesn't mean feminists aren't bad and evil and wrong, frankly. But tell me something honestly. If you had a younger cousin, say you had a cousin who was 16 years old, and you learned that they were converting to third wave feminism and that they had decided that they want to go to university and study feminist theory, feminist philosophy, how concerned would you really be compared to that 16-year-old cousin converting to Islam and deciding to go to a Muslim college, madrasa, whatever you want to say, to go and study Islamic jurisprudence or Islamic philosophy or Islamic... Really is feminism that bad? Really? And, part of the concern does center around the university as a kind of locus for political discourse and debate. But I've said this many times on the channel. If you really think it's so terrible to be in a university that is dominated by feminist opinion, what is it like to be in a university that is owned and operated by the Catholic Church, that is owned and operated by one specific Protestant Christian church or another? In the United States, there are major universities owned and operated by the Mormons. Scientology? Not yet. So, again, yes, and I've encountered it. It is kind of weird. It's kind of awkward dealing with feminist bias in an institutional setting. But really, it's not that big a deal. Really, compared to any other ideology of our times. And yeah, we could mention other things that your 16-year-old cousin might have discovered on the internet, become infatuated with, and decide to sign up for. Okay, there are worse things they could sign up for that you could be more concerned about. So, feminism, I almost always critique it because one of my viewers has written in asking a specific question, and I sympathize with her. I feel they're asking a meaningful question. And today I got a question from a viewer of the channel. Okay, more than one person has said this to me in the last couple of weeks. In response to my videos about OnlyFans, a few people were writing into me asking about the feminist justification of earning money from the sale of your own body, if you like. But really here we're just dealing with the sale of your nude image, whether that's on OnlyFans, Instagram, or Pornhub, or some other website. The feminist analysis of this as empowerment, as empowering. One of the people writing into me is herself making money through something like OnlyFans, but she's self-critical. She's philosophizing about it. She sees the disadvantages as well as the advantages. That's why she's interested in talking about it and asking this question. Okay, look, sometimes it's important to ask ourselves these same questions and remove the element of sexuality entirely. In the same way, when I talk to white Americans about racism, I very often give them a kind of parallel study from a country like Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, some country where they've never even thought about racism, and try to get them to ask themselves the same questions, like in this parallel universe that really exists. Like, in Laos, Lao people don't get along with the Hmong people, and the Tai Lu don't get along with the Tai Nhe. Can we talk about a history of racism that you personally don't have a stake in, where your desires are not excited by the subject? And then maybe we can come to some conclusions about racism in general and apply them to your milieu. In this case, almost all of us have some kind of personal stake in these issues of like sexuality, beauty, desire, the human heart, fame, earning money. I mean, these are all things where, to some extent, nobody is completely detached. To some extent, our passions are inflamed by this. Is it fair to say that the feminist analysis of exploiting one's sexuality for money, for advancement, for personal gain, would be parallel to encouraging a young black man who's born and raised in Baltimore to buy and sell cocaine for his empowerment, for his advancement? Right? Now, I'm specifying a young black man in Baltimore, in part because of a conversation I once had. The guy was a PhD student. He said to me, this is not a tremendously deep point, but I think it is an important and salient one. He said, that for him, being born into the family he was born into, it would have been very easy to become a lawyer. Whereas for someone else, maybe born into a bad neighborhood in certain American cities like Baltimore, it would have been almost impossible for them to become a lawyer. And he said that for him, it would have been incredibly difficult to become a cocaine dealer. But for someone else born into other circumstances, that would have been incredibly easy, or would have been almost the only way to rapidly make a lot of money with relatively little effort. Remember watching a long interview with an African-American woman from New Orleans? And this was in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, in exactly that period, when the whole world briefly paid attention to New Orleans. She was actually a talented amateur rapper, too, interestingly. And she talked about the role that dealing cocaine and crack had in her life. And she was completely sober. And she was just describing that once you get used to being able to make that much money in so little time with so little effort, it's incredibly hard to quit the habit. Not the habit of using drugs. She didn't use drugs. She was sober. It's hard to quit the habit of dealing drugs, right? And she was talking about, with very little effort, making about $300 a day. So just to put it in perspective, this isn't like high level, many kilograms of drugs. These are a few small transactions. You can make $300 and get on with the rest of her day. Okay. Work at McDonald's for minimum wage. Sell drugs on the street for $300 a day with very, very few hours of effort. Are we willing to call the criminal route empowering here? And probably the people who do this, they have friends who did this for years and never got caught, never went to jail. Probably they can justify in their own minds that they're going to make this moral compromise. They're going to do this deed. Maybe they think they're only going to do it for a few months. Maybe they think they're only going to do it for a few years. And maybe that'll give them the money so that they can go to law school and become a lawyer. Now, maybe they want to go to dental school and become a dentist, go to nursing college, become a nurse. Doesn't matter. There is an argument for dealing crack cocaine being an empowering thing for the drug dealer, right? That seems to me in some important ways parallel to the feminist justification of selling nude images of your body on OnlyFans. Of course, in other ways, it's not parallel. It's not comparable. But here's a further point of comparison. You get caught, you go to prison for dealing cocaine. You put in all this effort to go to law school, and now you can never practice law. You can never be taken seriously as a lawyer, nor as a politician, because you have a criminal record for drug dealing. It's possible. It's possible. You could be a young woman who wants to go to law school, who actually does go to law school and who pays her way by selling nude and sexy images of herself on the internet. Now you've got a law degree and you can't use it, or you're incredibly limited in how you can use it because you're known as a porn star, basically, shall we say, right? So there were some interesting points of comparison here. And I think that nobody can deny there is a sense in which it's empowering to make a lot of money with very little effort, whether it's through pornography or drug dealing, in contrast to working at McDonald's, working at Starbucks. And in our post-industrial North American economy, United States and Canada, almost nobody has the option or opportunity to work on a farm, right? To actually haul in grain or bale hay. I did that as a very young man. I have memories of it, and it really shaped the way I viewed labor forever. I mean, I've got to say, it really had a very profound influence on me, this idea of honest work. And then I've been cut off from honest work of that kind for the rest of my life. I've never had the opportunity. So, most of us, again, this has to do with your conditions of birth. For some people, it would be easy to become a peanut farmer. But for the rest of us, it would be impossible, depending on where we're born. And really, the only humble employment we could get is working at Starbucks, working at McDonald's, this kind of thing. And then you have to flip it around and ask, wait a minute. If you want to be a lawyer, if you want to be a political leader, and these things are linked in American culture, tragically, I completely oppose that. But the reality is, getting a degree in law can be the doorway to a position of political leadership in American society, Canadian society, probably in many other societies too, okay? If you want to be a political leader, if you want to be a lawyer who's taken seriously and changes the world in whatever way, what if that requires self-sacrifice? What if, even in regarding working at McDonald's as terrible, bad, and evil and wrong, what if what's required is that you, no matter how beautiful you are, refuse to sell your body, refuse to be a porn star, sell images on Instagram. You put up with working at McDonald's because that end goal of being taken seriously as a lawyer or a politician requires that self-sacrifice. That characteristic of self-discipline and self-sacrifice is a morally positive virtue you're expected to cultivate and maintain for that outcome. Okay. Another deeper question. What if there really is a kind of dignity in working at McDonald's? What if there is a kind of dignity in working at Starbucks that we're all just overlooking or ignoring simply because it's hard work? What if doing more hard work for less money actually has an important kind of dignity? What if that has some real moral and ethical importance in contrast to making a lot of money very easily through life? I discussed on this channel, I think 5 years ago, Angie Verona. Some of you haven't heard of her since. There was one video on this channel pointing out, half jokingly, but half dead serious, that Angie Verona would be a better political leader than all the leaders we had at that time in the vegan movement, in as much as veganism is a political movement. All right? Still true today. Half joking, but half serious. Angie Verona at that time was a political science major. She completed her political science degree, went on to law school. Now she's finished law school. She's a fully qualified lawyer. Joey Carbstrong. Do you think Joey Carbstrong would last 5 minutes in a university department of political science? Do you think that guy could get a BA in political science? I'm not even saying these things qualify you to be a leader of the vegan movement. Tragically, they don't. What people actually learn in a political science degree, another question. But the irony was saying, look, even if you're going to choose people who are bikini models to be the leader of your political movement, people like Freely the Banana Girl, even if this is how you can choose it, why can't you choose a bikini model who studied political science and got a law degree? This is the point of the video. Right? Anyway, our leaders in the vegan movement are so astoundingly terrible. It's still true to this day. Compare Angie Verona to Joey Carbstrong, Wayne Seong, the leader of DXE, or the leader of Anonymous for the Voiceless. There's a real argument that still today she'd be better than the leaders we've got in veganism. Do you think Angie Verona can ever be a real lawyer? Do you think she ever could take on a position of political responsibility and leadership? Or do you think the possibility of her doing that has been destroyed forever in the same way that a teenager who chooses to deal crack cocaine on the street, the possibility of him ever working as a lawyer is destroyed forever once he has that criminal record, once he's made that moral compromise for short-term economic gain. I think this is the very simple puzzle lurking behind all of the complex feminist verbiage about empowerment.
Dun, 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 dun.